Okay, welcome to the Smart Leader Sell podcast. I am Jessica Lorimer, sales coach and leadership expert. And today I am so excited because genuinely I am with one of my favorite ever people. Like the list kind of goes Sam/my mum, because obviously they're family and I can't choose between them. Then Max. Max may actually be at the top. I may, but anyway, there's a list of those people. And then there is this person who is Heather Gray, who is just the incredible hostess of Business Mindset Mastery podcast and the owner of ChooseToHaveItAll.com and my very own mindset mentor and general genius in cahoots. So welcome. Thank you for being here.
Jess, we're finally doing it. We're having the important conversations. Thanks so much for including me in it. And I can't wait to dive in and get started. This is such an important conversation we're about to have, and your listeners are really going to get a tremendous amount of value from it.
Absolutely. And I think that's where we dive in. I mean, ultimately, people want to know who you are because some people apparently in this world have not heard of you. So shoot with that and then let's get straight to the juicy stuff.
I do mindset and performance coaching for online business owners, leaders, and entrepreneurs. And basically where I sort of categorize and define mindset is it's the psychology of success. We all have mind gremlins and blocks that get in the way of us perceiving our ability to dream, perform, or take action on a bigger scale. And sometimes we're not always aware of it because we can't always see what's in front of us. So I work with business owners to help them identify how they're getting in their own way and what they need to do to be able to stop and move forward and take their businesses to the next level. So I basically do that right now with one-on-one services with people, but I also do, like, as you know, I consult on your sales groups, and I also consult for the Screw the 9-to-5 coaching community too. So I do it for individuals one-on-one, and I'm also a member of a couple of communities where I consult for as well.
Yeah. And that's the fun bit, I think, for me, is that you originally started in cash creation in December.
Yes.
Your trajectory has been ridiculous. So Heather joined Cash Creation, a program of mine in December 2016, showed up, has probably been one of the most engaged ever participants, showed up, challenged me on many levels as a coach, and we had a blast. And then following Cash Creation, you always joke that you are the 16-month success?
Yeah, I'm the overnight success that took 16 months to happen. Yeah, absolutely. When I met you in Cash Creation, I had transitioned a 10-year private practice brick and mortar business. I had been offering clinical therapy to adults locally in Massachusetts in the United States, and I had just moved my business online, and the parts weren't working. I had the shiny, sexy, sassy website. I had the really good tagline. I had the branding image photos, but I didn't know how to get everything to work together. And what I really learned from you and from Cash Creation is that it's simply not true that if you build it, they will come. I had viral hits online. I had people who were respecting me in Facebook groups that I was a member of. I had written many blog posts. I was on major publications. I was an editor for a major media publication. And I kept thinking that if I kept offering free value, if I kept showing up for people, they would then come and want to buy from me. And what I learned in Cash Creation is the same thing that one of you, you had a guest just last week on your show who was talking about this, that like you train your audience not to buy from you. And I had trained my audience not to buy from me. So I learned from you how to pivot and turn and twist and change my messaging so that people could see me as someone that they would want to purchase services from. But it was an important sales lesson. And I think that a lot of times people forget that part. That in this online space, It's all about deliver free content, and nobody teaches you that at the end of that, you have to have a call to action. You have to ask for the sale. You can't expect people to just buy from you because they like you. It doesn't work that way. You have to give them the opening. You have to open the door and allow them to walk into that space. And I think that's why people get stuck, is because then we have to sell. And that's why podcasts and shows like yours are so important, because it's how to have the sales conversation. And you can be scared to death, and you can be all tied up around your tongue about it, but at some point you still have to learn how to ask for the sale.
Yeah. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Not how to ask for the sale, because that's episode 1. You can go listen to that if you want. But around getting over the fear of actually taking the action. Because one of the biggest things that I see online is not that people don't know how to do things. Like, let's face it, we all have Google. Google is your friend. You can learn the majority of pretty much anything, including, heart surgery, how to be an astronaut. These are just things that I've Googled in the last couple of weeks. But you can learn these things on Google. Sales is no different. You can learn it from a podcast like this. You can go into a Facebook group. You can download a PDF. The problem is not the knowledge. The problem is that people don't want to sell because we're afraid. We're afraid of rejection. We're afraid, what if people say no? How does that make us feel? And one of the things that I really want to start with, and I hope you're okay with this because I'm just landing it on you, is that idea of attaching our self-worth to the money. Because this is something you brought up, and I've hired Heather many, many times to be, a consultant for my private programs. But one of the things that you said recently to my private masterminders was so powerful. And it was about that idea of attaching your self-worth to the money.
Yeah, let's jump in there. So I think that when we're talking about building online businesses, so much of the focus these days is on building your personal brand. It's your vibe attracts your tribe. What's your story? Tell people who you are. You have to show up authentically. You have to be you. We're told to just do you. You can mean the hell out of it. But at the end of the day, we're putting our whole selves into our businesses. So of course, the moment when we're asking for the sale, if we don't get it and we don't get the results, suddenly it feels like us personally, who we are as people, have failed, and we are not worth someone else's investment. We are not worth someone else's time. And that's simply a gigantic thinking error, because there are so many reasons why people don't buy from us. I just outlined one earlier, which was I offered free content and I never asked for the sale. The story, if I had made it, oh, people don't like me, they don't really enjoy the things I have to say, they don't care about what I have to offer, then immediately I'm looking at the wrong problem, and I'm never actually solving the obstacle, which was, you pointed out, like, you have to ask for the sale. And it's like, hello, stupid. Did you ask? Did you tell? Did you say? And when you don't, then that's what, like, the natural consequence is. If you don't ask for the sale, people aren't going to buy from you. But if I create the story that it's somehow personally what I did, I'm going to start looking at my copy. I'm going to start looking at the design of my lead page. I'm going to look at all of the wrong things and miss the obvious.
Yeah. And I think that's the interesting thing. When it comes to selling, we would rather look at all the other stuff first, because the other stuff actually makes us feel good. Like if we can't, if we have a sales page that isn't converting, oh, it must be the copy. It must be the graphics. It must be the this. It must be the that. Of course, it's not the fact that you haven't gone out to your audience and said, hey, I want you to buy this, or I want you to take this action, because selling doesn't have to be something that's paid for. It can be that next step in the relationship with you. The point is, you're asking people to make a decision that you are heavily invested in. And whenever you ask them to make a decision that you're heavily invested in, you are going to be nervous, because ultimately you cannot be completely detached when it's your business. When I was in corporate, I didn't give a toss. Like, in all honesty, I was like, yeah, cool, that client doesn't want to work with us, no drama. And I'd phone 10 more and I'd get a bunch more sales, and it didn't bother me. When I went into my own business, suddenly I was like, oh, well, this affects my mortgage. This affects how I'm going to eat this month. It's the difference between living on pot noodles and actually having a meal, and whilst that's not something that, I advocate, if that is you right now, go and get a job, be financially stable, make sure that you are responsible for your finances and that you can be relatively detached from the situation. But you're never going to be 100% there.
Exactly. And I think one of the things to pay attention to is that we are not our brands.
No.
We are the business owners of our brands. And business owners are our own persona. It's one part of us. It's not all of us. And I think when we make our businesses so key and tied in and knotted in with our identity, it's really hard to untangle. Because here's the thing, department stores sell purses and bags. They are heavily invested in selling those bags. They don't want them to be stacked on the shelves and have to go to discount and all of that. But they are not so heavily tied to who buys the bag. They just want someone to buy the bag. We have to start thinking about it in that lens, that when someone doesn't buy from us, that's not the right person. We're finding every rejection opens us up to finding the right person. Otherwise, we're going to end up building businesses, offering services and products to people who are not our ideal clients. And then we're stuck in meeting needs that we don't want to serve. So it's in our best interest to be rejected so we can find our tribe. But the only way we do that is by removing that personal lens off of it and recognizing that, yes, we're sharing our story. Yes, we're sharing our personality, but we're not sharing ourselves. Now, our core of who we are is not being rejected when our coaching service or package is not being purchased. And we know that to be true about other people, because if we think about it, especially those in the online space. You and I are both running podcasts right now, right? And everybody else has a business podcast. We're not listening to every show that's out there. I am not personally rejecting every host that's out there. I'm not saying, oh, so-and-so, I really don't like you, so I'm not listening to your show. So-and-so, I really don't like you, so I'm not listening to your show. It's not personal when I don't purchase from other people. It's not personal when I don't buy someone's product that's filling up my news feed. So if I know that to be true, that it's not a service or product, an episode I need for myself right now, why am I attaching the story that when someone chooses not to buy, listen, or purchase from me, that it's because of me? It's not true both ways. And if it's not true both ways, it's simply not true.
I think it's really interesting because obviously when we look at, traditionally successful people online, if we look at Russell Brunson, Marie Forleo, Todd Herman, people who have all had six-figure, multi-six-figure launches, they aren't sat there looking at their inbox or their, active campaign, email autoresponder and going, but person number XYZ didn't buy. What was wrong with me? Why did they not like me? They're like, oh, cool. Look at the other 50,000 people that just purchased the product. That's fine. I think we have to have that sense of not everything you put out is going to be right for that client right now. Not every client is going to be in the space where they need that exact thing right now. Sometimes they'll buy it for later because, hey, we have the shiny object buyers, we have the fear of missing out buyers, we have the aspirational buyers. We know that. But sometimes, especially when you're selling high ticket services, especially when you're selling something like one-on-one coaching, done for you services, actually, people aren't going to buy that to keep in their back pocket because they can't. It's not something that they can just be like, oh, I'll put that off for a couple of months and read it later. They actually have to show up and do the work, and I think when we talk about the fear of selling, one of the biggest things that tends to come up is around when we are selling based on huge transformation. Because what I see is that a lot of people are like, yeah, cool, Jess, I can sell this $27 product. Like, I will go and sell that everywhere, and I'm going to tell everyone about it. Where people get stuck is when they're like, oh, actually, I'm going to sell this $2,000 package, and I'm going to work with that person one-on-one, and I'm going to oversee and hold them accountable and really coach them through a specific challenge that they're experiencing or a transformation that they're looking for. And that's where the problem comes in, because suddenly you're not just attaching the sale to your self-worth in terms of the money that's going to come in, but you're also putting your, balls to the wall, as I would have said in corporate, and many other people would, and saying, I'm staking my claim. I am showing you my worth. I am prepared to show up for you 150%. And if you show up for you 150%, this is the amazing thing that can happen. And that scares people.
What you just said right there is the problem, because I don't think people believe in the products and services as much as we need them to in order to make the sale. So they've been coached, and somebody has taught them how to refine their brand, how to get their ideal client in, how to sell the service or package. And there's all kinds of coaching programs that walk you through that process. But at the end of the day, they've created their shiny new offer. They've put themselves out there, and they have to say, hey, I'm worth this. And they're so afraid that the person's going to come back and say, hey, I just paid you X amount and I didn't get my value. And where I go with this is it's okay to have the fear, but that's not a reason not to sell. People are stopping themselves from asking for the sale just because they're afraid of rejection, just because they're afraid of failure, or they're afraid that somebody's going to ask for a refund. So because they have all those thoughts and worries, they're never asking for the sale, rather than recognizing our fears don't need to determine our behavior. And if we don't have buy-in to the dollar amount that we're assigning the transformation, then we just change the dollar amount until we can live with it. And I remember when I met with you the first time, you looked at my prices and you're like, why are you undercharging yourself? You're worth more. You're better than this. And I said, oh, I know, but I'm kind of new and I'm not really sure, and I've only been in business for a year. And you basically said, what the F are you talking about? You have 20 years experience. You're just doing it here online new, but you're erasing your experience when you undercharge yourself simply because you've changed your office. And I think that that's a really important thing for people to recognize, is that as we move into the business owner space, that might be new for us. I've had my own business for 10 years, so that part wasn't new. I was used to thinking like a boss. I was used to thinking like a business owner, but I erased all of that because I was new to doing it online. And I think what we need to recognize is there's value to the time we've spent learning. There's value to the time the amount of money we've invested in coaching thus far, and how we've gotten our skill set and all of those things. And then we name our worth based on that. And we might learn the lesson by undercharging. And that's a better offense to deal with than not asking for the sale. I would rather tell someone they're undercharging than, hey, how can I find you? I'd rather option A.
And that's the thing, ultimately, I think we, in this world, yes, it's very, very normal to see out of integrity and frankly, just shitty sales processes. They happen every day. I wrote about this in my Facebook group yesterday. And I was talking about the fact that I'd spent one day just absorbing. I was like, I'm just going to people watch today online. And that was it. I was kind of in between calls and I had things going on. And I was treating the online world like I was in a cafe, where you kind of look and you try and guess what conversations people are having. And honestly, I was horrified. We are constantly being told on the Facebook newsfeed, we're not good enough. We're constantly being told, if you just do this one magic thing, everything's going to change. We're constantly being oversold and underdelivered. And as a result, it does make us very, very cynical. And that's the thing. When I came into the online space, I was so excited about what I was doing. I knew that I had a lot of experience. I had been working in the corporate world doing the exact same thing. I was ready to rock the whole thing. And then I came in and I was like, oh, suddenly, because I don't know how to run a webinar, oh God, like life is over. Of course I can't sell because I don't know how to run a webinar, and I'm going to go and learn and do that. And I don't know what, MailChimp is. So I'm going to go and do this. And I think that we are in a space where you have to be more resilient. You have to connect to that piece of you that did have the rose tinted glasses of, hey, I want to help women lose weight. I want to help, couples who are struggling to have a baby actually have the baby. I want to help people who want to make more money. It doesn't matter why you do what you do or who you're doing it for. The fact is, once upon a time, before you were bombarded with everything that came out of the newsfeed and that came out of the ads, you were confident in you. You were sold on you, because that's why you started a business. You took the biggest chance there is. You believed in yourself and you went for it. And then 6 months later, you're like, oh, but because so-and-so spent like $100 on Facebook ads this week and targeted me with all this stuff that I don't know, suddenly I'm not worth it. Suddenly I can't make the big, bold promise to my clients that I can help them achieve this if they put in the work, because now I don't feel good enough. Now I feel like I need to play small.
Can I add another avenue to this? Because I do think that some of it is simply starting with confidence and then losing it the longer we're in the space and getting distracted by the noise. But I feel like I would be having a conversation out of integrity if I also didn't say that some people come into this space thinking they can make an easy buck. That especially in the coaching industry, where the barrier of entry is so ridiculously and quite frankly insultingly low, and there's no regulation, so anyone can be a coach. I mean, you can go through a singular breakup in your life, just one heartbreak, and suddenly you are a breakup expert. You can overcome one tough difficulty and suddenly you are a resiliency specialist. You can do, I can't remember the cockamamie horse something or other you and I were laughing about a couple of months ago, because anybody can do anything online. And it's a reality of our space that people buy into the easy fix. Yeah. And then they realize they have to do the work, and then they get paralyzed with fear, and then they get caught up because they've already invested in all the stupid software, the fancy schmancy website and all of that, and they haven't thought about the basics. So I think before we worry about self-esteem and loss of confidence, people need to make a choice. And you and I have talked about this 1,000 times privately, which is probably why we forgot to say this first at the beginning of the show, because it's just like the truth you and I run on, is, do you want to make money online, or do you want to own a business? This conversation starts with that question. Because as you've pointed out, anyone can put a GoPro on a monkey and make money online by putting that video on YouTube and then getting the ad revenue from it. But being a business owner is a choice. And if you have made that choice, selling is non-negotiable. Suck it up. Stop telling us that you want to sell without being spammy. Stop telling us that you don't want to insult people and be one of those annoying people showing up in our inboxes. Shut up about it. Because if you're a business owner, sales are non-negotiable. You don't want to sell, don't own a business. Find yourself a monkey, put a GoPro on it, and go make money online. That's where it starts. Because then we can say, I've chosen to run a business. Now, as a business owner, how do I deal with the loss of confidence? How do I deal with the fact that I'm in a really competitive space? How do I compete with the fact that some people have really strong automation abilities and everything runs smoothly, but I'm a tech idiot? How do I manage and respond to whatever's in front of me? Because once you've made that choice, you then make every other choice next as a business owner. and you own it like being a boss. What would the boss do? And it's kind of funny. Every time I have felt small, I have just had to remind myself, I'm the boss. I'm running this.
And that's the thing. I mean, you guys can't see it because you're listening, but I'm just nodding like the Winston Churchill dog. Like, you guys don't have that advert in the US, but in the UK, we have this like nodding dog. And he's just like, yes, 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 yes. And that's what I'm doing right now, pulling my dog face and nodding. But it is true. Like, you have to step up, I think, and you have to decide who you are. Are you a moneymaker? Like, are you someone who, and you know, it's without judgment really, but are you someone who wants to sell makeup for other people? Are you someone who wants to sell leggings? Do you want to do Lululemon, Tupperware? Like, I see a ton of stuff on the internet every single day that people are throwing out to their friends. And honestly, it's so much easier than setting up a business. Like, God, they provide the products for you. They give you the marketing copy. They tell you how to spam your friends' inboxes if they're a crap company. You know, if they're genuine, like, you know, they teach you actual marketing methods that work. And then you have the decision to be a business owner. And that means that, especially in the beginning, you get to own the business. You get to be the marketer. You get to be the salesperson. You get to be the tech person. You get to be the customer care person, the delivery person. Like, you get to be everything. And that's actually really hard. And the reason it's so hard is because we want to play all those roles. You know, at no point in my business ever have I wanted somebody to walk away going, I didn't have a great experience with Jess. But also at every point in my business, there have been tough decisions that I've had to make where I've gone, this person paid me for this and they expect this. That isn't going to happen. Because as a business owner, I cannot run my business providing people with champagne on a beer budget. That doesn't happen, right? And we have to have those tough conversations. And actually, when you decide to be a business owner, you are, again, it goes back to, you are more attached to the sale because you want your business to succeed. And rightly so. Like, we don't set up a business so we can fail. Like, nobody does that. But when you are a business owner versus a moneymaker, again, moneymaker, you can blame it on anything. Oh, people don't like leggings now. Oh, nobody has a use for Tupperware. Nobody has a use for XYZ. When you're a business owner, you have put your years of expertise and passion, and you've packaged it up into something that you know can really help other people and that you genuinely want to scale. And if we're honest, we have an ego as a business owner. And part of that ego is, I want to make an impact in the world. I want people to know my name. I want to leave a legacy. I want people to read my book, listen to my podcast, join my group, know who I am in the street, if that floats your boat. And so when we have to ask for the sale, we risk that every time. We risk that that person will say, oh, well, I never read your book. Or, oh, I listened to your podcast and I thought it was average. Or, oh, you've got a Facebook community. Oh, I don't do Facebook.
Exactly. And I think that sometimes too, that it's about recognizing that you need to have those conversations in order to get to the sale. We're so afraid of that talk. And so one of the things that, like, when we think about how do we manage these fears, how do we, given the pile of thoughts and doubts that you just added, like, how do we push through with it? And the first thing I say to people is answer back. Like, have an answer ready. When somebody says, like, do you even have a degree? Or how do you know about this? Or what makes you think you're so much better than the other person? We have all of these fears of things that people will say. And instead of taking, like, action, we stand frozen in the, well, what if they say this? And what if they say that? I always want to know, well, what's your answer going to be? Because someone really should ask you, do you have a degree if you're messing with my mind? I have never, P.S., by the way, people have ever been asked about my degree. And I mess with minds all the time. Consumers need to be educated on the questions to ask. Oh, yeah. Because I should absolutely be getting asked that question. I have a graduate degree. I have a license to practice independent therapy. And nobody has ever, even cared or so much as asked. So, but you want to at least have the answer ready. Because when you bolster yourself with the answers, with your unapologetic response, you're armed and ready with your artillery to engage in a really honest conversation. And the flip side of this is we need to talk about the moment you made me cry. Right?
Right? That makes me seem like a mega bully. Like, I'm only a few episodes into this podcast. At the moment, I look like a really nice person.
Yeah. But the moment you made me cry changed my life. So I was in Jess's group, and I was talking about how I was participating in Facebook groups, and I was in online communities, and I was writing articles, and I felt really comfortable when people were asking questions. And if you ask me a question, I just did it yesterday. Someone asked like a 2-paragraph question, and they got like a 5-paragraph novel back from me in response. And I said to Jess, I don't want to be, and I remember the moment, like it was in December, but I remember like it was yesterday. I said, I don't want to be one of those pretty little girls walking in a flower field, suddenly dropping knowledge bombs on things nobody in the group ever asked about. I do so much better when people ask questions. I don't want to show up and offer value about things no one's asking about. And Jess took a beat, and she said to me, you know you're being selfish, right? You have answers and ways of helping people, and you're choosing not to because you're waiting for them to just happen upon the right question at the right time when you're sitting with it in your back pocket. And I promptly melted down and burst into tears, and it was on video in a group call, so everybody got to see it. But it's the moment that changed my business.
Yeah.
Because it's the moment that made me change my mind. That we don't wait for people to find out about us and how we serve and how we value. We have to know the value of what it is we have to offer and recognize that when we have the ability to change lives, when we have the ability to transform people's pain points, when we have the ability to offer a product or service that's going to make life more efficient or more pleasurable for somebody, we owe it to them to tell them. And it's on them to decide whether or not they want it and could benefit from it. But when we hold on to it, we're being selfish. We don't need it. We already know it. But we need to let it go. And we need to trust that the right consumer will find it and will value it and respect it, while also being prepared for the person who's going to take it, crumble it up, throw it back in our face and tell us not good enough. It's an incredible challenge. But again, when we bring ourselves back to the reality of what it means to be a business owner, that's what business owners do all the time. We have Yelp for a reason, because businesses live and die by word of mouth and reviews. We absolutely should be concerned about getting a bad review, but it's not what happens if people don't like me. It's people might not like me. What am I going to do in response? Because restaurants now have a way of moving through the world when food is brought back to the kitchen. The manager might come out, they might take something off the bill. They don't sit and refuse to cook on the off chance that someone isn't going to like the meal. They serve the meal and have a response on the off chance that somebody doesn't like it.
Yeah. And I think this is the thing. You cannot let yourself get so paralyzed in fear that you have to have an answer to every single question, because you never are. And the reality is, and this is a stat, I think it was Harvard Business Review, because I quote them all the time. It must have been them. But there's a stat, there's actually only 12 objections in the world. 12. You know, now to get that statistic, they've interviewed hundreds and hundreds of companies across insurance, across corporate sales, across recruitment, across, you know, handbag sales, shoe sales, it doesn't matter. But the fact is there are 12 things. Even if somebody threw all 12 at you on a call, you'd still never be prepared, because what that person says and how they say it and the way that they phrase it and the thing that they're talking about is completely different in their situation as it is in somebody else's. So you are never, ever going to be fully prepared to justify your business to anyone You are never, ever going to be able to justify your price, because it doesn't matter whether it's $20 or $2,000. Someone's always going to tell you it's too expensive. In short, you're never qualified to justify your business or your personal values, the things that you stand for, the things that you believe in, your education, expertise. You cannot justify those things to anybody. What you can do is be prepared for those people who aren't that into you, who aren't your ideal clients, who have somehow made it through your messaging, who have somehow made it through an application process and they looked great on paper, but in reality, they just didn't match up to what you needed. And your response to those people is always, thanks, but no thanks. We're not a good fit. And honestly, that takes the fear out of selling, because selling is not a passive process. You do not get to just sit back and be like, oh, cool, here's my thing. Do you want to buy it? You get to turn around to the customer and say, hey, I think you are a great fit for this transformational program that will change your life in these ways. What do you think about having a discussion on that? And then it's up to the customer to say, okay, yes, I'd be open to having a discussion, but it's also up to you. If they come to that discussion and they are not right, you get to go, actually, I was wrong. We're not a good fit. This isn't going to work. Off you go somewhere else.
What I really like about what you just said is an important part and an important component to the conversation is the self-awareness of who we are. And the way I always frame it with the people I work with is, who am I? How do I move through the world? And what do I want my life and business to look like? And when we know the answers to that question, we start to make decisions that get us closer to the person we want to be, that are more consistent with how we want to move through the world, and get us closer to the way we want our lives and businesses to look like. And when we know who we are and how we move through the world, we have those sales conversations in ways that are consistent and aligned with that. You and I actually are pretty similar in a lot of ways, so I would imagine our sales conversations are probably also really similar with our prospective clients. However, there's other people who are going to be like the truth bomb people, and they're going to like do it in a flashy, loud, like attention-getting, polarizing message kind of way, because that's consistent with their personality. They may do it louder. They may do it with, more sass or flash or something. We're going to do it in the ways that are consistent with us. And if everyone else does that too, then we're having sales conversations with the people who are aligned with the way we deliver it. But a lot of times the thing that happens around sales, and I think I was just saying this on my own podcast the other day, is that we treat the sales conversations differently. So we offer content consistent with who we are, in our own voice, with our own opinion, in our own style, and then suddenly it's a discovery call or a decision-making call, and suddenly it's like we put our sales hat on, and suddenly it's like this new role we're playing, and we're trying to be someone else, rather than recognizing the sales conversation has to be in line and consistent with who we are. Otherwise, the prospective lead is going to get on the phone with us and be like, where's Heather? Where's Jess? Who are you? And what have you done with them? Because this isn't the person who I've connected with thus far. But when we know who we are and what sets us up for success, we have those conversations with more ease. And when we get the pressure off of having to be a different way or show up as a different version of ourselves, we're not as tied down by fear. Because if we don't know ourselves, we have to do that before we know how to sell ourselves. It's like a chicken and the egg.
It's so funny, isn't it? Because sales is always so applicable to dating. And I remember being massively unsuccessful at dating. So this is not a long time ago, but a few years back when I was, decided to get on the Tinder Plenty of Fish bandwagon. It was the first ever time I'd experienced online dating. I remember all of my friends going online, immediately finding partners, and they were like getting married. It was like they'd been together 2 weeks and it was like, oh God, we're eloping to Mexico. And I was just like, why is this not happening for me? What's wrong with me? And I remember spending like hours on my profile, and I'd be like, I'm great. And I'd be thinking about the things that people wanted in me. I'd be like, oh yeah, I can cook. I can't cook for shit. Like Sam is a very unlucky man in that department, because there is nothing on this planet that I can cook without burning. Even soup. It's like a miracle, you know. And so I remember putting all these things in. I was like, yeah, I can cook. And I thought, how hard can it be? And, you know, I put that I liked going to the cinema. I hate the cinema. The cinema sucks. Unless you get masses of popcorn and leg room, I don't want to be there. It's a room, a TV room with people I don't know will like. And I remember getting so frustrated because I could never find anyone. I was going on dates with lovely, generally, people, but they weren't my people. You know, it wasn't my date. And I remember coming off of it for a little while and having some time out, like I think we all do. And everyone said, you'll find someone when you're not looking for them. And I remember hating all of those people, wanting to shoot myself. And I eventually got back on Plenty of Fish, and I wrote a dating profile. And instead of taking it so seriously, my profile name was The Next Bridget Jones. Again, you can see why Sam is attracted to me, right? I'm hilarious. But my profile name was The Next Bridget Jones. And in my profile, I just kind of wrote about the stuff that I didn't want. I was like, look, if you're really boring and you don't have a sense of humor and you're not willing to laugh at every single joke that I put out there, we're probably not going to be a great match, because I laugh small at my own jokes and I think I'm really funny, you know. And Sam was the first date that I had from this revamped profile, and he was the right one. And that's the thing. When you get over the fear of trying to justify who you are and how you can be the best fit for everyone, and you actually polarize and you go, yeah, I'm not for everyone. And I'm cool with that. And I'm okay to say that these are my quirks and these are my good points and these are my points where actually it's quite easy to identify with the right fit or not. That's when it doesn't become scary, because you're not putting yourself out there to fail. You're actually putting yourself out there. You're setting yourself up for success by being really honest. This is what I can do. This is what I can't. If you're here because you like that.
Yes. And I think the other thing too is like, so let's stick with the dating analogy. I'm digging this. So so here's the thing. So say the boy or the girl doesn't like you, right? Like, let's just chase the tail. You put yourself out there and you did your Next Bridget Jones profile, and the first guy wasn't the right guy, because not everyone's so lucky. Are you going to live to tell the tale? Yeah. Are you going to like die of like loneliness and misery because the first date with your new revamped profile didn't get you a second date? Is the world going to end? Is, you know, doom going to be sort of put upon you? We fear failure and rejection in enormous proportions. Like, are you going to live? Is it going to make you bleed? Are we going to need to like tie off an artery? Because if not, what the hell are you so afraid of? Who cares? You don't want to fail. You don't want to be rejected. And it, like, same thing. Say you met Sam and fell head over heels for him, and he didn't like you. Would you just die? Would it all be over? Would we like have never gotten the benefit of this show because you would have passed away 4 years ago? Like, we need to get over the fact that like this fear of rejection is so scary. We're all going to live to tell the tale. We don't want to fail. We don't want to be embarrassed. We don't want to be rejected. We don't want to do our best and have our best not work. But are we capable of doing it? Yeah, we're capable of living through failure. We're capable of living through rejection, of surviving the boy or girl who doesn't like us, of the failed relationship, of giving it our best shot and nobody buying a product. And if we recognize that we need to get to the other side of that in order to find out what happens next, we're more willing to fail quickly. Like, if I have to fail, let me get that over with because I really want to know what happens next. And one of the things that this makes me realized, and I don't even think you know this about me. Do you know that in 2013 I had another business that made no money? Did I ever tell you this story?
No.
This is a fantastic story. So literally, like, I was a private mental health therapy practice. I was probably 7 years or so into my brick and mortar, and the writing on the wall was starting to reveal itself that this wasn't going to be my forever business. I could feel the burnout starting. I could feel the need to do something else. I had come from corporate, and as much as I didn't like the corporate schedule running my life and determining when I worked and when I didn't, I really did like getting promoted every year. I was a huge fan of that. And I was also a fan of making more money every year and getting more respect every year. And when you're in private practice and I was accepting insurance, like, not only did I not make more money every year, I made less money each year because insurance companies were lowering the rates that they were reimbursing the providers. So it was 2013. I was seeing only adults. I had decided for myself that I would be a really good parent coach because after 10 years of working with children and families, I knew how to identify problem behaviors in kids. I knew how to connect with kids. I knew how to de-escalate tough situations within family dynamics. And it would be a fee-for-service product or service that I could offer members of my community. And it would get me out of the insurance nightmare that I was in with the, like, you know, having no say over the rates. And I didn't get a single sale. And it comes down to one thing, that I didn't do the market research. And I just assumed if I said to parents, hey parents, do you have a problem with your kid? I have the answer. I was unafraid of selling. I told everybody it wasn't that. That was not my F up. My F up was that A, parents don't like to admit not knowing. They are far more comfortable dropping off their kid to a therapist and saying, here's my kid, they're the problem, please fix them and I'll pick them up at 4 o'clock. And B, they don't want parenting advice from someone who's not a parent.
Yeah.
So I kind of messed that up. And so I started a business. I told everybody about it. I plastered my face everywhere. My cards were in every pediatrician's office, doctor's office, school guidance counselor. I covered the town, and it was orange because I kept the branding color. I've always been a fan of orange, so it was orange. So I painted the town orange with my every business card known to man. Not a single sale, because I never took the time to ask. And guess what? I'm here. I'm on a podcast, a sales podcast, telling the story. I have lived to tell the tale, even though every guidance counselor in that town knows that it didn't work out. Every pediatrician in that town knows that it didn't work out. All the parents of people that I saw and had conversations with know that I offered this service and it didn't work out. And now I'm in a new business. And at last check, Jess, I'm 2674 away from beating my best year ever in private practice. So it's going to happen this year. But I had another business and it made no money. I live to tell the tale. I think we have to get real about that we have massive success, but if we wallow in our massive epic failures, like running a business that you don't get a single sale from and being totally in the red because I paid for all those cards, I paid for the website, I paid for the coaching, I paid for all of that, we never get to this part where I have a biz bestie on the other side of a pond that I get to talk to regularly, and then I get to learn from and grow from and exchange ideas and important conversations with. Because if I rolled over and played dead in 2013, I never would have landed here.
And this is the thing. I mean, obviously, firstly, just ridiculous amounts of kudos, because December 2016 looked very different and you kept going. And here you are about to beat your best ever year. So that's huge. I think, the important thing here is, guys, when we're talking about getting over that fear of selling, it is about setting yourself up for success. Nobody, believe me, nobody wakes up born to be a salesperson. They just don't. Kids, ironically, would be the best salespeople because A, they are resilient as anything, and they are not afraid to speak their mind, and they will go out happily, you know, playing one of their parents off against the other for the latest fidget spinner or whatever the cool things are now. But nobody is born that way, right? We learn. Sales is a skill. You have to set yourself up for success. You know, my first sales call was not a great one. My second sales call was not a great one. Probably, in all honesty, like my 10th, 30th, 100th were not the best that I've ever done. Now I run a business where I've never had a no on a sales call in 3 years. You know, it's never happened to me. Now, yes, I could be very lucky. Yes, I pre-qualify massively, but it doesn't mean that I didn't put in the time to learn the skills. So when you are thinking about, oh, I'm scared of selling, really? Are you scared of selling? Or are you scared because you haven't done the process required to get you the result? Because that's the honest, hard look that you need to take at yourself and go, have I set myself up for success here? Or am I just dropping my link in 500 Facebook groups, running and hoping that I'm going to become a millionaire by Christmas? Because if that is you, it's not going to work out.
Yes. And you know what's interesting, and I was going to share this with you earlier, and I forgot to say it, is that the success in my sales calls have gone up along consistent lines with the success of my business. And I actually don't think it's because I've gotten that much better at sales calls. It's because my business is doing better. I don't need every sale that comes in. And I wonder for the people who are really struggling in their sales calls, who are really struggling in those conversations. My story is the more you need the sale, the more you need to pay the rent tomorrow type need the sale, the more you're struggling with that delivery, because you feel like every word matters. You feel like every option you put out there in front of the consumer is going to be the thing that you live or die by, pay your rent or don't pay your rent by. And I actually think that part of what we need to do is change our mindset around needing the sale, instead of looking at it and instead looking at it as something like we have an opportunity to offer. Because when it's about us needing, we serve from a place of desperation. We serve from a place of feeling and acting small. And I just don't think that we're that good enough of actors that doesn't then translate onto the consumer. And that we need to be able to exude confidence. So sometimes, even when we need the sale, we need to spend our time bolstering ourselves and believing ourselves, I don't need this sale. I may want it. I may really want it. I've worked hard for it, but I don't need it. And I think in some ways that brings us full circle to what you were saying earlier. Like, how do we separate our self-worth from the yes or the no on the sales call and in the sales exchange? And I think it gets tied to that at the end of the day, as business owners, we cannot need our consumers. We want consumers. We want people to buy from us. But as soon as we need them, as soon as it becomes a dependency that's heading in the wrong direction, we're setting ourselves up to fail. Because I can tell you that now that I don't need every sale that comes in because my calendar's looking pretty good these days, I'm way more relaxed. Simply because I'm not like looking at the checkbook as I have the sales call. And that is what changes the story. So if you're coming at a place of it from desperation, you said it kind of swift, and you and I joked about this all the time, but like, go get a job. If you're building a business and you can't pay your rent tomorrow, then go get a job or do something that sets you up to be able to have these conversations with more ease and more assurance and confidence. You know, we have this thing, I don't know if you guys have it in the UK, TaskRabbit. Is that an app in the UK?
Yeah, we have it, but not many people use it.
Okay, so it's pretty big here. And so just the other day, I'm getting ready to move pretty soon. I'm moving from Boston to California. And I was looking at one of those pod storage units where you can put your things in and they hold it in a shipping container for a while and then they deliver it to your house when your house is ready. And I had been planning on loading it myself. And I was thinking to myself, like, I've done a lot of this. I don't know if I can do this task by myself. And it might be on a weekday when everybody else is at work. I went to TaskRabbit and somebody's going to charge me $35 an hour to load my pod for me. Well, if you need money and you are physically able, then go get yourself on one of those apps and make the money, do the work so you can breathe and your finances aren't like keeping you up at night and keeping you stifled. Go do that. Get the side income that you need to build the business, because then you're going to be more relaxed in your business. And you just have to accept sometimes that this thing takes time to take off. Like, the overnight success that took 16 months. It takes time. And if you're so desperate for the sale, of course you're going to be afraid of every no and every rejection, because every no and rejection means another, what did you call it? Hot pot or noodle pot? What did you call it?
Super noodles, pot noodles.
Pot noodle. Every no means you have to eat more pot noodles instead of a steak. Well, of course we all want steak, right? But except, obviously the vegetarians. But that idea is, we want to set ourselves up to be ready for the business that finds us. And part of doing that is setting ourselves up for success and recognizing that if we can't breathe because finances are so tight, we need to loosen that up to, unrestrict the airway and have the hard conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. So there you have it. That is exactly what you need to be doing. If you are really worrying or fearful about selling, you need to be really thinking from the perspective of, do I want to make money online? Do I want to be a business owner? Then you need to be thinking, have I set myself up for success or have I set myself up to fail? And then finally, you need to just get out there and do, because ultimately there is no practice in the world, in your mirror, that is going to help you like real practice with real people. So to get over it, make sure you get out there and you actually do the work. And obviously go and look up Heather, because if you have an issue around your mindset, I am not ashamed to say that she has kicked me into touch many, many times before. So where can people find you, my love?
Well, first, I would love for them to check out my podcast. You can find me over at Business Mindset Mastery on iTunes. And those of you who are Android listeners can use the podcast app to find me. But then also, too, I have a Facebook group called Choose to Have It All, and you can find me there, or just check out my website. There's a whole work with me page for all the ways that I help and serve people. And I do like weekly interventions, monthly interventions. I cover people head to toe, however they need it. So it's been an amazing conversation, and I am so psyched to have this conversation with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I so appreciate it. And like I say, if you have enjoyed the conversation today, if you want to be part of the conversation, make sure you check out Heather's Facebook group. Make sure that you come and join the Smart Leader Sales Society. And more importantly, make sure that you download this episode, that you subscribe to future episodes, and that you leave us a review, because it's always nice to work out how we're doing and how we can better serve you. Have an epic day, and I will see you back on Monday for the next episode.